Daniel lived in a quiet village surrounded by hills and thick forests. Life in the village was simple, and everyone knew each other. People worked hard during the day and gathered in the evenings to share stories, eat together, or play simple games. Daniel was known as a calm and thoughtful man. He kept to himself most of the time, but when someone needed help, he was always there. He had a small house at the edge of the village. It was modest, with a little garden full of flowers and vegetables. He liked the peace and quiet, and he enjoyed watching the sunrise every morning. One morning, Daniel noticed something unusual. From his window, he could hear shouting and the sound of running feet coming from the nearby fields. At first, he thought it was just a disagreement among villagers, but as the noise grew louder, he realized it was more serious. People from the neighboring community, a village that had always been in conflict with Daniel's village, were running through the fields. There were shouts, and Daniel could hear the cries of frightened people. Fear gripped him, but he also felt something else, a need to see if anyone was hurt. He grabbed his coat and walked cautiously toward the fields. As he got closer, he saw a small child crouching behind a pile of hay. The child looked no older than 5 or 6. His clothes were torn and he was trembling. Daniel immediately recognized the child as someone from the enemy village. Normally, he would have stayed away, but something in the child's eyes stopped him. There was pure fear, confusion, and helplessness. Daniel felt a deep urge to help. He called softly, "Hey, it's okay. You don't need to be afraid." The child froze at first, unsure if he could trust this man. Slowly, he crept toward Daniel, his small hands shaking. Daniel knelt down to make himself less frightening and held out his hand. "Come with me. You'll be safe," he said gently. The child hesitated, then grabbed Daniel's hand, and they walked together quietly toward Daniel's house. Once inside, Daniel offered the child water and some bread. The child, who couldn't speak much, just nodded and started eating. Daniel asked, "What's your name?" The child whispered, "Milo." Daniel smiled softly. "Milo, you're safe now. I won't let anything happen to you." He could see the fear slowly leaving the child's eyes. Daniel knew it was dangerous to hide a child from the enemy village. People might think he was betraying his own community. But in that moment, none of that mattered. All that mattered was keeping Milo safe. Daniel thought about what to do next. He knew the child couldn't stay hidden forever. If the enemy villagers found him, there could be a fight. If his own villagers found out, they might be angry or even threaten him. Daniel had never faced anything like this before, yet he couldn't ignore Milo's fear or leave him alone in the dangerous fields. The child had no one else. Daniel felt a strong responsibility for Milo's safety. The days that followed were tense. Daniel kept Milo hidden in a small room at the back of his house. He brought him food quietly and tried to make him comfortable. He also began teaching Milo simple things to help him feel safe: how to stay quiet when people came near, how to move carefully around the house, and even how to wash and take care of himself. Milo was a quick learner, and slowly, a bond started forming between them. Daniel found himself talking to Milo about simple things like the stars, the sun, and the birds. Milo smiled sometimes, and those small smiles felt like sunshine to Daniel. Word about Daniel helping the enemy child started to spread through the village. Some villagers came to his door asking questions. Others whispered behind his back. Some people thought Daniel was brave and kind, risking himself to save a child. Others thought he was foolish or even a traitor. Daniel listened quietly, but did not let their opinions change what he was doing. He knew he had to focus on Milo's safety. At night, Daniel often stayed awake, thinking about the risks. He imagined the villagers from the enemy community looking for Milo. He imagined what could happen if they discovered he was hiding the child. Despite his fear, he felt a strange calm. He realized that sometimes doing the right thing was more important than worrying about what others thought. Milo had no one else. Daniel had the chance to make a difference, even if it was just for one child. Milo, for his part, began to trust Daniel more each day. He would follow Daniel around the house, holding his hand tightly. He would giggle when Daniel made funny faces or told him small stories. For the first time in his young life, Milo felt safe. He stopped trembling so much and even started to sleep better at night. Daniel was careful to keep him away from windows and doors where people might see them. He also kept an ear open for any signs of danger. One evening, as they sat by the fire, Daniel said, "Milo, I know you miss your home, but you're safe here. I will protect you no matter what." Milo looked at him with big, trusting eyes. "Will they come?" he asked quietly. Daniel nodded. "Maybe. But I will not let them hurt you." Milo leaned against Daniel, feeling warmth and security, for the first time in days. Even as danger loomed outside, Daniel and Milo began building a small, peaceful world inside the house. They played small games, told stories, and sometimes just sat quietly, watching the night sky through the small window. Daniel realized that by protecting Milo, he was also changing himself. He was learning patience, courage, and a deeper sense of empathy. Milo was teaching him that innocence and trust could exist even in a world full of fear and conflict. Days passed, and the tension outside never completely faded. Daniel knew that sooner or later the enemy villagers would search for Milo. He also knew that the villagers in his own community would question his actions, but he felt ready to face whatever came, because for the first time in his life, he understood the true meaning of protection and responsibility. Milo was not just a child. He was a chance to show that kindness could survive even in the hardest circumstances. The bond between Daniel and Milo continued to grow. Every small smile, every small laugh, and every word of trust strengthened their connection. Daniel became more determined to keep Milo safe no matter what. He realized that courage was not just about fighting. It was about standing up for someone who could not stand up for themselves. And in that quiet house at the edge of the village, a new story of hope and bravery was beginning, one that would soon reach far beyond the walls of their small home. As the days went by, Daniel and Milo began to settle into a quiet rhythm in the small house at the edge of the village. Every morning, Daniel would wake early, tend to his little garden, and then quietly bring Milo some breakfast. Milo had started to trust Daniel completely. He would smile when Daniel entered the room and would sometimes run to him with excitement. For Daniel, those small moments of joy were more precious than anything else. He could see that Milo's fear was slowly fading, replaced by curiosity and a small sense of happiness. Daniel knew he could not keep Milo hidden forever. The child's family, especially his mother, would be looking for him. The thought of the mother searching for her child worried Daniel, but he also knew that returning Milo immediately could be dangerous. The neighboring villagers were tense, and any confrontation could end badly for both the child and Daniel. Daniel had to be careful, planning each day so that Milo would remain safe while he figured out a longer-term solution. During the day, Daniel began teaching Milo simple skills. He taught him how to sweep the floor, how to carry small items safely, and how to stay quiet if anyone came close to the house. Milo was a quick learner. He listened carefully to Daniel and tried his best to follow instructions. At first, the child's small hands trembled as he tried to complete tasks, but Daniel always encouraged him gently, saying, "It's okay, Milo. Take your time. You're doing great." Slowly, Milo began to gain confidence, and the small lessons became fun for him. Evenings were the most special time for both of them. Daniel would sit with Milo by the small fireplace, and they would talk about simple things. Daniel told stories of the stars, explaining how the moon moves across the sky and how the sun shines on the hills in the morning. Milo would listen with wide eyes, asking small questions and sometimes laughing when Daniel made funny voices for different animals. Daniel realized that Milo's laughter brought warmth and light to his otherwise quiet and lonely life. He felt a sense of responsibility not just to protect the child, but also to nurture his spirit. One afternoon, Daniel heard distant footsteps on the road leading to his house. He quickly motioned for Milo to hide in the small storage room he had prepared. Daniel peeked through the window and saw a group of villagers approaching. Among them was an older man from the neighboring village, known to Daniel as a leader in the community. Daniel's heart raced. If they discovered Milo, the situation could escalate quickly. When the group reached his house, they called out, asking if anyone had seen a child running through the fields. Daniel stepped outside, keeping his voice calm. "I haven't seen anyone," he said gently, hoping his words would satisfy them. The villagers looked around but eventually moved on. Not noticing the small figure hiding inside, Daniel let out a quiet sigh of relief and then went inside to check on Milo. The child was peeking through the small door, his eyes wide with fear. Daniel knelt beside him and said softly, "It's okay, Milo. They didn't see you. You're safe." Milo nodded, hugging Daniel's arm tightly. Over time, Daniel began to notice changes in Milo. The child was growing more curious about the world around him. He would watch the birds in the garden, asking Daniel what they were doing. He would touch the flowers gently, smelling them and asking about their colors. Daniel realized that Milo was not just learning basic survival skills. He was beginning to experience joy, wonder, and trust. For Daniel, watching this transformation was deeply moving. He felt proud, not of himself, but of how the child was learning to feel safe and happy despite the fear that had once consumed him. Daniel also began to think more deeply about Milo's family. He wondered what the child's mother must be feeling, searching desperately for him. He imagined a mother's love and fear, and he realized that Milo's safety depended not just on hiding him, but also on understanding the larger situation. Daniel knew that someday he would have to face the mother, and he wanted to be prepared for that moment. He wanted to make sure that when it came, the encounter would not put Milo in danger. One evening, while they sat by the fire, Milo looked at Daniel and asked quietly, "Will my mother find me?" Daniel paused, choosing his words carefully. "I don't know, Milo, but I promise you, while you're with me, no one can hurt you. I will protect you, always." Milo nodded, resting his small head against Daniel's shoulder. That moment deepened their bond, and Daniel realized that Milo had become not just a child in his care, but someone he genuinely loved. Protecting Milo was no longer just a duty, it was a commitment of the heart. Despite the peace inside the house, tension remained outside. Daniel could feel it in the way villagers glanced at him, in the distant rumors that reached his ears, and in the occasional sounds of soldiers and patrols moving through the area. He understood that each day brought new risks, and he had to remain vigilant. Yet Daniel also realized that fear could not control him. He had made a choice, and he had to stay true to it no matter the consequences. As weeks passed, Milo began to speak more. He told Daniel small stories about his life before coming to the house. He spoke of games with friends, the colors of flowers in his village, and the songs his mother used to sing. Daniel listened with patience, realizing that these small stories were a way for Milo to hold on to his past while feeling safe in the present. He encouraged the child to share, knowing that each story was a piece of healing, a step toward emotional security. One morning, Daniel noticed a faint track outside the house, small footprints that could have been from a child or an adult. He felt a surge of concern, but he remained calm. He knew that worrying would not help Milo. Instead, he focused on preparing for any possibility. He explained to Milo, in simple words, how to stay calm and where to hide if someone approached. Milo listened carefully, understanding that Daniel's guidance was meant to keep him safe. The bond between them grew stronger with each passing day. Milo began to imitate Daniel's actions, helping him with small tasks around the house. He would sweep the floors, water the plants, and even try to cook simple meals with Daniel's supervision. Daniel watched with pride as Milo became more confident and independent. He realized that protecting the child was not just about keeping him safe from harm, it was also about helping him grow, learn, and feel valued. By the end of the month, Daniel understood that his life had changed completely. He was no longer just a man living quietly in a small village. He had become a protector, a teacher, and a guide. Milo had changed him too, teaching him patience, empathy, and the strength that comes from caring for someone else. Together, they had created a small world of trust and safety, even as the larger world outside remained uncertain and dangerous. In the quiet nights, as Daniel looked at Milo sleeping peacefully, he realized that their story was just beginning. The challenges ahead would be difficult, and the outside world would not easily accept what they had built. Yet Daniel felt ready. He had discovered that courage was not only about facing enemies, but also about standing firm in one's beliefs and protecting those who could not protect themselves. Milo had given him purpose, and Daniel knew that as long as he had the chance, he would shield the child from every danger, no matter what came their way. Weeks passed, and Daniel continued to care for Milo, but the tension outside grew stronger. Rumors about the missing child had spread to the neighboring village, and Daniel knew it was only a matter of time before someone came looking for him. He tried to prepare for every possibility, thinking about ways to keep Milo safe without raising suspicion. Every sound outside the house, footsteps on the path, the creak of a gate, or the distant calls of villagers, made him tense. Milo, sensing the change in Daniel's mood, would hold his hand tightly or press close to his side, trusting Daniel to protect him. One early morning, Daniel saw movement along the road leading to his house. At first it seemed like villagers passing by, but then he noticed a figure moving with purpose. A woman was walking steadily toward the house. She carried herself with a mix of confidence and determination that made Daniel's heart race. Her clothes were different from anyone in his village, made from strong materials, and her steps were precise. He instantly recognized her from the stories he had heard, the mother of the child, Milo. Her name was Lyra. Daniel's mind raced. He could feel the weight of the decision he had made pressing down on him. Milo had grown attached to him, and Daniel had grown attached to Milo. But now, the mother was here, and she was looking for her child. Daniel moved quietly, signaling Milo to stay hidden in the back room. He could hear the soft rustle of the child's small footsteps as he crouched behind the door. Daniel's own breathing was steady, but his mind was alert, calculating how to approach the situation without causing a confrontation. Lyra approached the door and knocked firmly. "I am looking for my child," she said, her voice calm but carrying authority. "I know he is here. I need him returned immediately." Daniel opened the door slowly, keeping his posture relaxed. "Your child is safe," he said carefully. "He has been protected from harm, and I have done everything to keep him safe. That is all I care about." Lyra's eyes narrowed as she studied Daniel, trying to understand his intentions. There was no anger in her voice, but a quiet strength that demanded honesty. Daniel explained the situation carefully, recounting how he had found Milo alone, frightened, and vulnerable. He described how he had cared for the child, kept him safe, and helped him feel secure. Lyra listened silently, occasionally glancing toward the back room where Milo was hidden. Daniel could see her concern and love for her child in every movement, every expression. She was clearly torn between gratitude and frustration, unsure whether to be angry at him for taking her child or grateful for keeping him safe. After a long pause, Lyra finally spoke. "I see that you mean no harm, but you must understand. He is my son. I have been searching for him for days, fearing the worst. Why did you take him without letting me know?" Daniel remained calm. "I could not know if he would be safe. If I returned him immediately, I only wanted to protect him. I did not want him to be hurt." Lyra's expression softened slightly, though her eyes remained cautious. She realized that Daniel's intentions were genuine, and that he had risked his own safety to protect her child. As they talked, Milo slowly stepped out from his hiding place, his small hands trembling but his eyes wide with recognition. "Mama," he whispered. Lyra turned quickly, her face lighting up with relief and love. She rushed to Milo and knelt, holding him tightly in her arms. Milo clung to her, and for a moment the tension seemed to dissolve. Daniel watched quietly, feeling a mixture of relief and sadness. He had grown close to the child, and seeing him reunite with his mother brought a strange ache in his heart. Lyra looked at Daniel, her eyes serious but not unkind. "You have done well to keep him safe. I can see that," she said. But now he belongs with me. I cannot let him stay here any longer." Daniel nodded, understanding her position. "I know," he said softly. "I only wanted to protect him until it was safe. I did not mean to take him from you." Lyra's expression softened further. She could see the honesty in Daniel's eyes, the quiet strength that had kept her child alive and unharmed. The situation was delicate. Daniel and Lyra realized that they needed to find a way to work together. Milo had grown attached to Daniel, and he had also missed his mother deeply. Lyra understood that taking the child back without care could frighten him or make him distrustful. She asked Daniel to stay and help transition Milo back into her care, ensuring that the child felt safe and secure. Daniel agreed, knowing that this was the best way to protect Milo's emotional well-being. Over the next few days, Daniel and Lyra worked together. Daniel continued teaching Milo, now with Lyra's guidance, showing the child that he could trust, both of them. Milo began to understand that his mother had not abandoned him, and that Daniel had protected him out of kindness, not malice. The bond between Daniel and Milo remained strong, but it shifted slightly, allowing space for Lyra to reconnect with her son. During this time, Daniel also began to learn about Lyra's community. She spoke of their customs, their way of life, and the challenges they faced. Daniel realized that Lyra was not just a mother. She was a strong, intelligent, and capable woman, willing to do anything to protect her child. He began to respect her deeply, understanding that her determination matched his own. Both of them wanted the same thing: Milo's safety and happiness. One evening, Daniel and Lyra sat together, watching Milo play quietly in the garden. Lyra spoke softly. "You have done something few would do. You risked your life for my child. I cannot forget that." Daniel smiled slightly, feeling a warmth in his chest. "I only did what I thought was right. Milo needed someone to protect him. That's all." There was a quiet understanding between them, a mutual respect that neither had expected when they first met under tense circumstances. Despite the peace in the house, Daniel knew that challenges still lay ahead. Outside the garden walls, tensions between their communities remained high. The trust they were building within the house was fragile and could be tested at any moment. But for now, there was a small sense of balance. Milo was safe, and both Daniel and Lyra were learning how to care for him together. The child had become a bridge between two worlds, showing both adults that compassion, courage, and understanding could exist even in difficult situations. Daniel realized that his journey was far from over. Protecting Milo had brought him into a world he had never imagined, filled with challenges, risks, and responsibilities. But he also knew that he was not alone. Lyra's presence, her wisdom, and her determination provided a new perspective. Together, they could face the uncertainties of the outside world, while keeping Milo safe and happy. The days that followed were filled with small victories. Milo learning new things, sharing laughs, and beginning to feel at home again. Daniel and Lyra continued to build trust, both with each other and with the child. Every moment of kindness, every gentle word, and every act of protection strengthened their bond. Daniel knew that while the outside world might be unpredictable, the trust and care they nurtured within the walls of that small house would remain a foundation for the future. By the end of this period, Daniel understood that shielding Milo had changed his life forever. He had faced fear, risked his safety, and built a bond that went beyond duty. Now, with Lyra present, the story was entering a new phase, one that would test their courage, their compassion, and their ability to navigate the complex relationship between responsibility, loyalty, and love. Milo had brought them together, and together they would face whatever challenges lay ahead. Daniel's days had become a careful balance of caring for Milo while learning to understand Lyra's presence. Milo now felt comfortable in both their care, trusting Daniel as much as he trusted his mother. Lyra had begun to open up to Daniel, sharing small details about her community, their ways, and their expectations. Daniel listened carefully, realizing that her world was structured, disciplined, and unlike anything he had ever experienced. He respected her deeply, seeing that her strength and wisdom were as much a part of her as the love she had for her child. One afternoon, Lyra approached Daniel with a serious expression. "Daniel," she said quietly, "I see how much you care for Milo. I also see that he has grown attached to you. That is not something I can ignore, but there is more to consider. My world, it is different. There are rules, responsibilities, and dangers you may not understand." Daniel felt a chill as he listened. He had known that caring for Milo could bring complications, but he had not imagined stepping into a world completely unlike his own. He nodded carefully, signaling her to continue. Lyra explained that her community had customs that required trust, courage, and loyalty. To truly care for Milo in the long term, Daniel would need to step into that world and learn their ways. It was not a threat. It was a test, a way to ensure that anyone protecting a child from her community understood their values and responsibilities. Daniel felt a mixture of fear and curiosity. He had lived a quiet life, and the idea of venturing into this new world was both intimidating and thrilling. Milo, sensing the tension, came close to Daniel and held his hand. "Daniel, will you stay?" he asked softly. Daniel knelt down and smiled gently. "I will do everything I can to protect you, Milo. I promise." Lyra watched quietly, noticing the bond between them. She understood that Milo's happiness depended on both their care and that any decision would have to respect his feelings. In the following days, Lyra introduced Daniel to small aspects of her community. She taught him their customs, their way of speaking, and how they approached problem solving. Daniel realized that adapting to her world required patience, humility, and a willingness to learn. At first, he struggled with the rules, feeling out of place and unsure of his abilities. But Lyra encouraged him gently, showing him that courage was not about perfection, but about the willingness to try and to act with integrity. Daniel also observed the strength and intelligence in Lyra's approach to caring for Milo. She was protective but patient, firm but understanding. He realized that Milo had not only survived because of him, but also because of the careful guidance and love from his mother. The two adults gradually began working together as a team. Daniel handled the practical safety of Milo, while Lyra focused on emotional support and teaching lessons from her community. This partnership, although new and sometimes uneasy, began to flourish as trust grew. One evening, Lyra spoke to Daniel privately. "I am offering you a choice," she said, softly. "You can continue protecting Milo as you are, staying here in this village. But if you wish to truly be part of his life and protect him fully, you must come with me to my community. There you will be tested, trained, and trusted. It is not easy, and it will change your life forever." Daniel felt a heavy weight in his chest. His life had been quiet, predictable, and safe. The idea of leaving everything he knew behind was frightening, but he also knew that Milo's safety, happiness, and future were at stake. Daniel spent a long night thinking about the offer. He considered the dangers of stepping into a completely different world, the challenges of learning unfamiliar customs, and the fear of failure. Yet he also considered the bond he had formed with Milo, the trust the child placed in him, and the respect he had for Lyra. He realized that love and responsibility often required sacrifice. Protecting Milo fully meant embracing risks he had never imagined. The next morning, Daniel made his decision. He approached Lyra with quiet confidence. "I will go with you," he said simply. "I want to protect Milo, and if that means learning your ways and facing challenges, I am ready. I will do whatever it takes to keep him safe." Lyra studied him carefully, then nodded. She could see the determination in his eyes, the sincerity of his heart. She realized that Daniel's courage was genuine, and that he was willing to step beyond fear for the sake of the child. Milo overheard their conversation and ran to Daniel, hugging him tightly. "You're coming with us?" he asked, his eyes wide with hope. Daniel knelt and hugged him back. "Yes, Milo. We will face this together. You won't be alone anymore." Lyra smiled softly, seeing the relief and happiness in the child's eyes. She understood that the bond between Daniel and Milo would now serve as the foundation for the next chapter of their journey. Over the following days, Daniel prepared for the transition. He learned more about Lyra's community, practicing customs, understanding their rules, and observing their way of life. Milo grew excited as he shared his own knowledge and experiences, acting as a small guide between the two worlds. Daniel felt a sense of wonder at how adaptable the child was, and he admired the resilience that had allowed Milo to survive fear and uncertainty. The day of departure arrived. Daniel, Milo, and Lyra set off together, leaving the quiet village behind. The journey was filled with anticipation, hope, and a touch of fear. Daniel looked at Milo, who was walking confidently beside him, and felt a surge of purpose. This was more than a journey to a new place. It was a journey into a new life, one where courage, compassion, and loyalty would be tested every day. So, they approached Lyra's community. Daniel could see the differences immediately. The structures, the people, and the energy of the place were unlike anything he had ever experienced. Lyra guided him patiently, introducing him to the leaders, explaining the expectations and helping him understand that trust had to be earned through action and integrity. Daniel felt challenged, but also determined. He knew that every lesson, every test, and every small success would bring him closer to the goal of keeping Milo safe. By the end of the day, Daniel had taken his first steps into a world that was both beautiful and demanding. Milo ran ahead excitedly, exploring new surroundings, while Lyra stayed close, ensuring that both Daniel and the child felt supported. Daniel realized that his decision had changed everything. He was no longer just a protector in a quiet village. He was now a part of a community that valued courage, wisdom, and loyalty. The journey ahead would be difficult, but he knew that together, they could face anything. The first weeks in Lyra's community were a mixture of excitement, learning, and testing. Daniel was introduced to their routines, customs, and ways of protecting children like Milo. He struggled at first, feeling clumsy and unsure, but Milo's constant encouragement and Lyra's patient guidance kept him going. Every day Daniel learned something new, realizing that courage was more than physical strength. It was patience, empathy, and quick thinking. Milo adapted quickly as well. He ran through the community, exploring safely, learning rules, and showing Daniel the little things he enjoyed. His laughter echoed in the halls, drawing smiles from others. Lyra observed both of them, feeling relief and pride. The child was safe, and the bond between Daniel and Milo was stronger than ever. She began to see Daniel not just as a protector, but as someone who could truly belong in their world. Daniel faced challenges. Tests of courage required him to navigate difficult situations, make quick decisions, and show unwavering commitment to Milo's safety. Each success brought him respect, while each mistake became a lesson. Slowly, he grew into the role Lyra had envisioned. He was no longer an outsider. He was a trusted guardian, a teacher for Milo, and a respected member of the community. Lyra, too, changed. She saw that her rigid rules could be complemented by Daniel's kindness and flexibility. She began to allow small changes, realizing that compassion and care were as important as tradition and discipline. Together, they created an environment where Milo could thrive, feeling secure, loved, and free to explore his world. One evening, as the three of them sat outside watching the sunset, Daniel reflected on the journey. He remembered the fear, the uncertainty, and the choices he had faced. Now he felt a deep sense of purpose and belonging. Milo lay between them, tired but happy, while Lyra rested close, her hand lightly touching Daniel's shoulder. Daniel understood that protecting Milo had not just changed the child's life, it had transformed his own. Their story continued, a tale of courage, love, and trust. Daniel had learned that bravery was not about fighting alone, but standing by those who relied on you. Milo had learned that even in uncertain times, kindness and courage could create safety. Lyra had learned that trust could grow in unexpected ways, bridging worlds and hearts. Together they formed a small family, bound not just by blood or community, but by loyalty, courage, and the shared desire to protect the innocent. As night fell, Daniel looked at the stars and thought about how far they had come. The journey was not over, but he knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. He had shielded Milo from danger, embraced the unknown, and discovered a world that was richer, more complex, and more beautiful than he had ever imagined. And in that moment, he understood that true courage, love, and trust could create a family beyond boundaries, beyond fear, and beyond the expectations of the world.